The spring transfer portal opens tomorrow, and just how active will the Florida Gators be in it?
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews on the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Tuesday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. And we do need to talk about this transfer portal because it opens tomorrow. And while Florida isn't expected to be super active in it, I do expect them to at least inquire on a few players, right? But also on the opposite side of it, Florida is likely going to lose at least 10 players total if you include Gregory Smith, who entered the transfer portal last week. There's going to be attrition, right? Florida on their online roster, just like on their website, currently has 114 players on their roster, okay? And if you don't know, if you haven't been told, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. The roster limit across college football is now down to 105. It used to be, I believe it was 128. Most teams, 140. And most teams didn't go that high. But it was, hey, you could have your 85 scholarship players and then a ton of walk-ons, right? A ton of walk-ons there. And so now the roster limit across college football is 105. But the SEC has another limit that's an 85-man scholarship limit. So, and I do think that that's a horrible disadvantage for SEC teams, okay? So Florida can have up to 85 scholarship athletes, which is normal. That's been the case. Then they can have 20 walk-ons, and that has not been the case. In fact, Florida, when Billy Napier first got to Florida, Billy Napier said, hey, you know what? We really want to build up this walk-on program. We want to have this depth, this competitive depth. Florida has brought in quite a few guys as preferred walk-ons. We see it a lot. And we see guys that are preferred walk-ons and earn scholarships and stay around. And it's great. But now Florida's allowed to have 85 scholarship athletes. Every SEC school is allowed to have 85 scholarship athletes and then 20 walk-ons. And the reason that that is a disadvantage is, for example, Notre Dame. Notre Dame announced a month or so ago that, hey, we are going to have up to 105 scholarship athletes. They will not have if they choose to give all their players scholarships. They will not have walk-ons. It will be 105 scholarship athletes. That's a disadvantage for schools in the SEC. Because what might be a walk-on player for Florida, like maybe he's player 86, right? Maybe he's player 86, and he's the last guy that you got to go, hey, man, we just can't give you a scholarship. Instead of saying, oh, okay, like I'll stick here as a preferred walk-on and I'll earn that scholarship, he can go to Notre Dame, for example, and get that scholarship right away. I do think that's a massive disadvantage for Florida. And again, the entire SEC. This is the SEC ruling this, making this decision. The NCAA went, hey, you could have 105 players, however it is. The SEC went, you could have 105 players, 85 scholarship, 20 walk-on. I think that's a bad decision by the SEC, and it's ridiculous if you ask me. But all that means is that not only will Florida need to tell some guys to hit the transfer portal, again, there are 114 players on their roster right now. So not only will Florida need to tell some guys to hit the portal, but there could be more attrition from someone that, again, Florida could say, hey, you're player 90 on the list, you're player 93 on the list, whatever it may be. But if I'm player 93 at Florida, that's not the same as being player 93 at Notre Dame. Again, I'm just using Notre Dame as an example because they've got the 105 set. They're cool with it. So player 93 in Florida isn't the same as player 93 in Notre Dame. Because player 93 at Notre Dame is getting a scholarship. Like that's what we're talking about. And look, there's going to be some teams. Maybe Florida will do it. We won't really know which teams do it because we're never actually going to get full NIL information to the extent that teams can use it right now. Maybe when revenue sharing becomes a thing this summer, maybe we'll get more of that information. But there's going to be teams that say, "Hey, you are a walk on, but part of your NIL package is going to cover your entire scholarship." If we want to give you, just to throw an easy number out there, $10,000 in NIL, maybe it's, hey, we'll give you $10,000 in NIL plus whatever covers your scholarship. I would imagine an SEC team like Alabama, Auburn, they're probably going to take that route. I don't know if Florida will, but that's the way that I think those teams will take that route, and that those teams will handle this stupid scholarship rule that the SEC has that other conferences don't have to have, and that other conferences won't have, and that independent schools won't have. And that's how it's working. It's yeah, I hate it. And I understand like the SEC could say, "Hey, we want to have 85 so that other schools in the SEC can pick apart other players and get their scholarship and fill that out." And so that, the top 85 on every roster is really good. But the way that it's really going to work out is that you're not going to have that. You're going to have those 20 walk-ons can be scholarship players elsewhere, even if they would be great walk-on depth. And I don't want people to insult anything about the walk-ons. Okay. Like that's walk-ons can develop and become great football players and all conference players. And they can do all of that. So Florida, not only will you lose guys because you are pushing players out, but you can lose some more guys that's a walk-on here, but has a scholarship opportunity elsewhere. Or even if they're just at risk of losing a scholarship opportunity here, they can say, "Hey, I'm going to head out." Just simple as that. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go get a scholarship elsewhere. And I will say this also. On3 reported yesterday that there is a possibility that safety Gregory Smith III, who entered the transfer portal last week, I think it was last Thursday, I want to say. I think it was 2 days before the spring game, who Greg Smith entered the transfer portal. And On3 reported yesterday that there is a possibility he returns. And from what I've been told, that NIL was a we'll say significant factor in it. I don't know if maybe the possibility to return is based on him not getting what he wants in NIL, or Florida maybe saying, "Hey, we're going to lose these guys. Maybe we should reallocate some funds and give him match whatever he's trying to get." This isn't a Nico Iamaleava situation, but on that one, love to see Tennessee lose, which we see often as Florida Gators fans. But I mentioned Florida on their roster right now is at 114 players on their online roster. Gregory Smith III has already been removed from that roster. So if Florida wants to bring him in, then that would really put them at 115 players, and they would have to lose 10 players at that point. So I do think that that's relevant there with the handling of the Greg Smith III situation. I know that there have been quite a few fans talking about bringing in another safety in the portal. I don't know if Florida is interested in doing that at this point in time, genuinely. Just because I feel like if they were, why not just retain Gregory Smith III? If you were willing to go into the portal to get a contributor, why not get the freaky athlete with great size that's already been in your system and knows your defense? So that's how I look at it. That if you were going to look at a safety in the portal, you would probably most likely just retain your guy that's in the portal right now and is very young, redshirt freshman that has, again, elite size, athletic traits, and looked pretty good on film last year. We are going to talk about some positions that the Florida Gators can target in the transfer portal in just a second with Locked On Gators. There is nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It is electric in the arena. And with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. I know that my New York Knicks are playing the Detroit Pistons in the first round, and I might have to go catch a playoff game. I might have to go catch a Knicks playoff game. Kate Cunningham's my favorite player in the NBA. Knicks are obviously my favorite team. If you're a Magic fan, which odds are you might be, they got a game tonight. Maybe you want to go. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even if the demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code Locked On College to get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free reviews on the podcast and on YouTube. And we talked a little bit last segment about what the Florida Gators, I don't think, will look at in the transfer portal. Again, I just don't think safety is going to be a priority for them. But I do think that the Florida Gators will still look into the transfer portal a little bit. And here's the thing. If you don't, you're failing. Okay, that's the best way I could put it. If you don't look into the transfer portal, I don't care how good your team is. If you are not at least kicking the tires on some guys, then you are failing. No other way to put it, right? And I do think that Florida will, again, we'll say kick the tires and look to bring someone in. And also, you could just look to say, hey, let's just upgrade our depth anywhere. Like, it's not necessarily addressing a need. It's just saying, hey, this guy is someone that, we recruited out of high school. We think that he could still be helpful to this team. Adam, just bring him in and push out the bottom of the roster. And I get that people, whenever I say things like, hey, just push out the bottom of the roster, I think people get upset when I say that. Here's the thing. This is a talent acquisition business, right? You go acquire talent, and you have to trade off somewhere, right? You got to get rid of someone. So it may sound like I'm being a jerk by saying just push out the bottom of the roster, but welcome to football, right? It's as simple as that. I do think that the most likely position that the Florida Gators will look to upgrade is probably on the interior of the defensive line, right? I mean, look, you look at guys like Caleb Banks, Jamari Lyons, we have high expectations for. But when I think about what happened in the winter portal a few months ago, right? I think back and I think, well, Florida looked at, spoke to, and had a couple of visits with interior defensive linemen in that winter portal, and ultimately didn't add anybody. Not because they looked at all those guys and went, you know what, they're not better than what we have. It was Keyshawn Silver was the guy that we were talking about, where it just became a bidding war, and Florida was not going to get into a bidding war, especially with a nose tackle. That's just that wasn't going to be a thing. And I know that there's a lot of Florida Gators fans that hate that they didn't get into a bidding war, that they didn't just go get the best players available at any position and just add them and figure out the rest later. I'm fine with it. If it was an elite edge rusher or an elite receiver or an elite corner that we were talking about, sure. But for a nose tackle, I don't think that it was too brutal to miss out on. But I still think, and I say, well, Florida looked at interior defensive line in the portal. Not much has changed since then. So why wouldn't I think that they're going to look back at that position again? And look, the freshmen have been turning heads, right? We've heard great things about Jeremiah McLeod. We've heard great things about Stephon Shivers. We've heard great things about the freshman defensive line class, just throughout the entire defensive line, but we're talking about the interior defensive line here. We've heard great things about that freshman group. However, couple points here. One, this is a room that has been hit with the injury bug before. Jamari Lyons missed all of 2024. And I know you could say it was a freak accident. It doesn't matter. It was still an injury bug. And I've said this before with offensive tackles or offensive linemen and defensive linemen. Big dudes with ankle injuries, takes a while, right? Even basketball, big men, when they hurt their ankle, it takes a while sometimes. Just because you got a lot of mass, a lot of size to move, a lot of pressure on the ankle. So sometimes that happens, right? That can slow down the process or the recovery process. And this is a room that has been hit with the injury bug before. So while the freshmen have been turning heads in spring, it wouldn't shock me if Florida went to go get a more experienced defensive depth piece out of the portal on this line. Again, I'm saying depth. I'm not saying to go get a superstar. I'm saying that if you can find a guy, if you can specifically a nose tackle is what I keep talking about. If you can find a nose tackle who he's got 1 year of eligibility left, probably coming from a group of 5 or below school, and he's like, hey, I get 1 year to try to prove myself to the NFL, figure out if I am even a power 4 football player, to figure out whatever it may be. I'm going to bring up a name, and I know that Florida Gators fans, I know that you're going to collectively cringe. I get it. It's fine. He didn't pan out at all. But like a Joey Slackman type where, and I'm not saying him as a player, I'm just saying in the case of a guy who multiple productive years at a lower level comes to Florida to try to take that step up in competition, see if he can cut it, and have him as a depth piece. I'm not even saying that he needs to be the number 2 nose tackle. I'm just saying that you can go add talent to that room, add depth to that room, add proven, experienced depth to that room, and you'd probably feel a lot better about it if an injury happens. Because think about it, you are 1 injury away from that rotation being very young and very inexperienced. Mekhi Boyro, DeAndre Robinson played decent snaps for a true freshman last year. They're still inexperienced. They had 1 year of depth piece snaps. That's it. So I do think that you can look at this team and say, hey, interior of the defensive line might be a spot that the Florida Gators are actually looking to upgrade in the transfer portal. Again, just add depth. I'm not saying, hey, Keyshawn Silver, you want to enter the portal again and come to Gainesville? I'm not saying any of that. I don't think you need to go get a superstar. I don't think you need to go get somebody that you think is even going to challenge for a starting spot. I think you get someone that can just rotate in 15, 18 snaps a game. That's it. And I do think that Florida, again, will look at it, because the way that I look at things is you looked at this in December, you didn't get it. Maybe it's a thing you're going to look at again. Right? I mean, think about it. In the past, they've done it with receivers before. Like they've done it with multiple receivers, and interior defensive line is a spot where you can come in the middle of the year, pick up the playbook, learn the playbook, and be able to rotate in. Receivers, another spot like that. Like that's what Billy Napier has talked about that before, where it's like, hey, those things, those things are easy to learn. Those positions are easy to learn the playbook. Because there's only so many things you're going to be asked to do. It's not like a quarterback where, like my thing with Nico Iamaleava is no matter where he goes, I don't know what he's going to do this year, because he has to learn a whole playbook. He has to get the timing down. Like, people could say it's easy, but it's really not. Again, especially coming from the offense that he's coming from in Tennessee, that's a Mickey Mouse offense that's very unique. It's not like you're going to go to another offense and it'll translate well immediately. So stuff like that, like defensive line, I think you can get. Receiver, I think you can get. Tight end, you can't. Offensive line, maybe. It would have to be a really experienced guy that's smart enough to pick up a playbook like that and be able to pick up blocking assignments. But even then, chemistry'd be off. Running back, you can get. Linebacker, I don't know. I don't think so. Because linebacker, you got to be able to make all the calls and all the adjustments, and that's just a lot to pick up. Corner, DB in general, I think you can. Maybe not star, but Florida already seemingly has their star position figured out, we'll say. But we are going to talk about one more position. It's the position that haven't really spoken about. We're going to talk about that when we get back with Locked On Gators. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you the full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start actually building your wealth, right? It's great. It's great. I'm just saying, if you like money, which you should like money, who doesn't like money? Monarch Money might be the place for you. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thanks for being Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, wherever it's in the podcast and on YouTube. And the last position that we are going to talk about here, cornerback. Looks similar to the interior of the defensive line. This is a position that has been hit by the injury bug in the past and is still dealing with the effects of the injury bug, right? And I mean, you look at the spring game, and I don't care about giving up 200 yards to Dallas Wilson. It means nothing to me. I don't care. This is a spring game. It's going to happen. Guys are going to go off. Guys are going to struggle. It is really not translatable to the regular season. I think a lot of us have seen that. Just because teams get better or worse in the fall. So I don't think it matters too much about what happened in the spring game, who did what in the spring game. It's fun to see. It's fun to watch. It's a fun experience. But as far as holding actual value to what you're going to see this fall, I don't think so much. But we saw in the spring game that there were not a lot of corners available. Florida, I think, has talent at corner. They've got a lot of youth at corner, but they don't have proven players or bodies in the room. Devin Moore has dealt with injuries throughout his entire career at Florida. And I feel like every time I bring that up, or almost every time I bring that up, I get a comment or two about how this is the year he's going to stay healthy and how I'm being too hard on him for things that are out of his control, like injuries. That's fine. It is. I think that that's a fair take. However, this might be the year he stays healthy, but the best ability is availability. And oftentimes with injuries, the best indicator of the future is the past. Guys that are hurt stay hurt typically. That's how I've taken the approach with the NFL draft coverage, with anything. Guys that stay hurt tend to stay hurt. And so Devin Moore has yet to prove that he could stay healthy, and I will wait for the proof that he can stay healthy. Okay? So Devin Moore has dealt with injuries. Might have him again this year. Dijon Johnson and Jameer Grimsley both got surgeries right after the season. So they've dealt with injuries in recent months. Cormani McClain, Jameer Grimsley, Michael Caraway Jr. from Southern Miss, Teddy Foster, Dijon Johnson. There is a lot of unproven talent in that room. There are a lot of unproven players in that cornerback room for the Florida Gators. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying they're unproven. Even Dijon. Dijon played a good amount last year. But he clearly, throughout the year, was still learning. And so that's why I say he's unproven, because I don't think he's mentally caught up to everything yet. And that's not an insult. That's not a knock. It is not easy to play corner. Guys get better when they're in the NFL. That's how a lot of guys get better, when they're in the NFL. You see guys that are just freak athletes learn how to play the position in the NFL. So it's fine to say that there's unproven talent. It's not an insult. It's not a knock on anybody. It's just a fact. Even if you want to remove Dijon Johnson from that, even if you feel like he's proven what he is, that's fine. That gives you Devin Moore when he's healthy and Dijon Johnson as proven guys in the room. Cormani McClain redshirted last year. Wasn't good at Colorado 2 years ago. Came over, had some good plays, had some flash plays, but redshirted last year. We do not know what any red shirt is unproven. I don't care what anyone says. Any red shirt is unproven. Cormani McClain redshirted, Jameer Grimsley redshirted, Teddy Foster redshirted, Michael Caraway Jr. is coming up from Southern Miss in the Sun Belt to the SEC. He's proven at the Sun Belt level. He's proven to be a good DB at the Sun Belt level. However, two things. One, he hasn't been proven in the SEC, where things are very different. And two, I still think he's better suited for the nickel spot than he is for outside corner. He played all spots in the secondary last year. I still think he's better suited for the nickel, but he is what he is, right? So whatever he becomes, fine, but he's unproven. if there is a guy in the transfer portal that can prove, like, maybe he's not a great ball hawk. He's not going to give you those splash plays. But if he can at least be reliable in coverage, personally, I would go at least kick the tires on him, see what he's looking for in NIL, see all that stuff. If there's a guy that's just proven in coverage, again, you don't have to be a shutdown guy. I'm talking about adding proven depth. That's similar to the interior defensive line. I think that they've done a fantastic job recruiting both those positions, right? I've had my qualms with this staff recruiting certain spots. I think they did a fantastic job adding talent. You also have Ben Hanks Jr. in the room, another unproven player there. But there's just not proven quality there. And look, youth, the best way to get better is by playing, right? But sometimes you got to sit back, wait your turn, and develop in practice. I don't think that's a bad thing to say, hey, we're going to go get a guy that's going to come in for 1 year, and be a rotational piece, if that, just proven depth piece there. If you can get that, like, or if that's available in the portal, I would look to do it. I would look for it again. You don't have to agree. Billy doesn't have to agree. No one has to agree. But that's just me saying that's what I would do in the portal if there's a proven guy that's just not going to get toasted and not going to get destroyed. I don't care if he's not going to get picks. If I can trust him in coverage, I would go get him. Simple as that. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast. We will be back tomorrow. Talk more Florida Gators. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I will see you all next time.